Em Fenômenos Sobrenaturais, iremos até uma fazenda da Carolina do Sul, onde uma família diz estar sendo atacada por fantasmas. Vamos visitar uma loja em Nova Orleans, onde muitos dizem ter visto um espírito de um amor da Guerra da Secessão que acabou mal. Vamos às fazendas de Wiltshire, Inglaterra, onde círculos misteriosos aparecem há 15 anos. Em todo o mundo há locais com mistérios inexplorados. Acompanhe conosco estes fenômenos sobrenaturais. Lancaster, Carolina do Sul, se orgulha de ser a terra natal do presidente Andrew Jackson em 1767. Ela se desenvolveu nos idos de 1800 e virou uma cidadezinha rodeada de plantações. Hoje, Lancaster mantém sua natureza cortês mesmo após as sedes terem se tornado pousadas. Mas, por trás dessa calma hospitalidade sulista, algo bem diferente acontece. Numa fazenda de aparência inocente, uma família diz fotografar e conviver com fantasmas.
There is no doubt in my mind that there's something out here. You know, good or evil, there's something out here that's not in the realm of what you would call normal.
This farm was part of my dream. I run a rescue farm for abused animals, and it was like the perfect place. One too big, one too small, just right.
Mas, para a família Jackson, a fazenda foi ideal só por um tempinho. Antes das coisas começarem a complicar. Sobretudo, à noite.
When it gets dark, we don't have a normal life anymore. The really first strange thing that happened for me was I was woken up one night hearing a man's voice calling my name. I didn't say anything to the children because I didn't want to scare them.
Apesar disso, as crianças já estavam com medo. Elas também ouviram barulhos. E já dormiam com bíblias na cama para espantar os espíritos. Então, numa noite, Lynn diz que viu, horrorizada, a cama de sua filha Amber se mexer sem motivo.
I saw this, and she was laying in it. It wasn't like she was playing in it that caused it to do it, and her bed is a heavy bed, but it lifted straight up and dropped straight down, scared her to death.
Amber, de 13 anos, diz que viu outro espírito, pouco tempo depois da cama se mexer.
I was standing outside with one of my mom's friends talking, and we looked over in the pasture, and there was a small white figure, like a childlike figure, real bright and white, and it looked like a little girl in a white dress. Well, they went after it, and when they got like halfway out in the pasture, it disappeared.
O marido de Lynn, Mark, não acreditou. Depois ele mesmo teve uma experiência.
I was lying in bed one night, and I was laying with my arms around my pillow like this, and something grabbed my pillow and pulled me across the bed. It wasn't a slow movement, it was a very quick, abrupt movement, which would have taken a man my size or bigger to move me like that, I think. I snapped completely awake, and there was nothing in the room with me.
A amiga dos Jackson, também residente em Lancaster, Penn Stevenson, acha que atropelou um fantasma ao sair da fazenda.
I hit somebody and they rolled over my hood. I was going down the road and they just appeared. The corner of the car caught them and you could hear the impact. It was a big thud. And they like skimmed the top front of the hood and gone over to the side of the road. And I crawled in the back seat of my car, and I was looking to see if I could see anything, and there was nobody. I mean, I even called the police the next day to see if anybody had got hit, and they said no.
Além do mistério que ronda a fazenda, a família Jackson tem tirado centenas de fotos onde há orbes, esferas luminosas, flutuando, e que a família acha que são fantasmas.
There are some orbs that are called collectives, and the smaller ones are supposed to be like a housing for spirits, and the larger ones have more spirits in it.
Elas aparecem em várias cores, formas e tamanhos nas fotos tiradas à fazenda.
Sometimes we have black orbs, sometimes they're white. Then we've gotten solid orbs that you can't see through. I've heard that those are evil. They're not good.
As fotos também mostram imagens esfumaçadas.
The smoke images, now, sometimes you can see the smoke image before you take the picture. You can actually see the smoke kind of just floating around you. But when you take the picture, it's like completely different than what you're seeing. I mean, it's just huge, and it's so solid, like a tornado floating up off the ground. Some of them will have faces in them. Some of them will have the orbs in it.
Além de crer que espíritos assombram a fazenda, a família crê que sejam malignos. Ben acha que foi fisicamente marcada por uma aparição misteriosa.
Lynn told me to go get in the corner of the barn, and she would take pictures and see if anything was there.
I feel real bad.
I got an overwhelming sense of heat. I just started sweating. And then my chest started hurting.
Maybe you better come out. Come on out. Come out.
And it was like a tight, dense feeling. And when I exited the barn, I actually got sick.
Lynn levou Ben para a casa e fotografou as marcas no corpo dela.
And it was a big whelp running down the back of my neck. And then when they got to looking farther, there was a whelp that ran all the way around my throat. And it was standing out. It was a big whelp. And it wasn't the jewelry or anything that I was wearing because it was above the jewelry.
Some of the activity out here has been violent, and it seems like over the last year it's gotten more and more active out here, and really, something like this, you can't predict what's going to happen in the future, and that's just not a situation that I like to be in.
Lynn Jackson acha que há uma explicação sinistra para esse mistério que sua família diz estar vivendo.
There's talk that 100 years ago there was a church out here, and the rumor is that the headstones were moved, but not the bodies from the graveyard that was with the church. We believe that because the headstones were moved and the bodies were left behind, we think they're upset about that. We feel like they don't want us here, like we're walking on their graves. There's actually a dead man right here. This is like his chest area. This is his head.
Imaginação ou realidade, a família acha que sua segurança está ameaçada pelos espíritos que habitam a fazenda.
A halo-looking type.
There is evil out here that wants us out of here and will continue to escalate the harmful activity until they do force us to leave.
Lynn continua a tirar suas fotos assombradas sem saber direito o que está fotografando. As fotos provam a existência do sobrenatural em Lancaster, Carolina do Sul? Os Jacksons talvez nunca saibam.
One thing I do know is that the ghosts are not going to tear us apart. They may bring our spirits down, they may scare us, they may hurt us, but they're not going to pull my family apart. And we are going to get out of here and get the animals and children to another farm to where we can once again live the life that we used to have.
O mistério não se encontra apenas na localidade. Às vezes, ele está na própria jornada em si. Asheville, Carolina do Norte, uma cidade com 66 mil habitantes, que atrai fãs da natureza por causa das florestas das Blue Ridge Mountains. Aqui, em 7 de setembro de 1997, o corpo de Judith Smith foi achado sob muitas folhas. Sua morte é um mistério, não só pela forma, mas por ter viajado a um lugar tão remoto. Tudo começou em abril de 1997, quando os recém-casados Jeffrey, advogado, e Judith, enfermeira, planejaram viajar de Boston até a Filadélfia para um congresso de final de semana.
We got to the airport and they wouldn't let her on the plane. She had some identification, but she didn't have anything that had a photo on it. And I had to be at a business meeting, and so she told me to go ahead and take the plane and that she would follow.
Segundo Jeffrey, poucas horas depois, ele encontrou Judith se registrando no hotel.
We coincidentally met in the lobby of the hotel. I came down from the dinner, and we met.
How's the conference so far?
Good.
Segundo Jeffrey, dali eles foram para o quarto dormir. No dia seguinte, quando ele saiu para o congresso, nada parecia diferente.
I was going down to go to the conference, and I went back to the room, and she didn't have anything on except a towel in front of her because she was just about to step in the shower. And we reconfirmed what we were going to be doing, and then I left.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Foi a última vez que quem conhece Judith a viu viva. Segundo Jeffrey, Judith ia passar pela cidade enquanto ele ia ao congresso.
I thought I was going to get back at 5. I didn't get back till about 5:30. Ran a little bit longer than I expected. And she wasn't in the room. Then I thought there was a bare possibility that she and I had mixed signals, or that she felt that since I was late that she was going to go down to the cocktail party, which was going to start at 6. By the time it got to be about 6:30, I was starting to get concerned because Judy was a person who was on time always. She would have somehow tried to leave a message or let me know.
Jeff pediu que ligassem para a polícia e hospitais.
I was frantic, actually. I mean, by 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I was pretty frantic.
Como Judith não voltava, Jeff ligou para a filha Amy. No dia seguinte, Amy chegou a Filadélfia para ajudar na busca.
She wouldn't leave without letting know. We were a family that always left notes. You know, you would come home from school and there would be a note, I'm at the grocery store, I'll be home for dinner, or, you know, I picked up a shift and I'm working tonight. But we communicated a lot. She just wouldn't just leave.
She was a very responsible person, and for her to suddenly disappear without word, to not let her children know where she was, to not let me know, just made no sense.
A resposta ao que houve com Judith estava a 800 quilômetros de onde ela foi vista pela última vez. Como a investigação inicial deu em nada, Jeff espalhou folhetos pelo país. 5 meses depois, um médico de Asheville, Carolina do Norte, a 800 quilômetros da Filadélfia, se lembrou do folheto e contatou a polícia da comarca de Buncombe, que investigava um crime misterioso.
We were contacted by some hunters that were out scouting for deer sign. They had come across some artifacts, clothing, and a watch that they felt was suspicious.
Examinando melhor, a polícia descobriu os restos mortais de uma mulher de meia-idade.
There was some bones protruding from the ground that appeared to have been covered up. As you continued, probably 50 yards away from the scene, there was other items. We found a water bottle. Some of these items were buried to some degree or put in pre-existing holes.
A vítima portava $100 em dinheiro e estava com um anel de diamante do noivado.
Appears that the robbery was not the motive. Does not appear as though there was a sexual assault. Her body was placed in a pre-existing depression in the ground where a tree had blown over. It was then covered up. There's not any question that it was murder.
Radiografias dentárias confirmaram que Jane Doe era Judith Smith. Mas para a polícia, essa descoberta deu mais perguntas do que respostas. Por que Judith Smith viajou 800 quilômetros da Filadélfia até Asheville, na Carolina do Norte? O que ela foi fazer lá? E o mais importante, quem a matou e por quê?
We can't explain how she traveled from Philadelphia to Asheville, which she never traveled to Asheville, Western North Carolina, that we know of prior. She had no friends in the area, so there doesn't seem to be any real motivation for her to travel to Asheville. We do not believe she traveled here against her will.
Procurando elucidar o crime, detetives tentaram traçar o trajeto de Judith antes do crime.
Through interviews in Asheville, we have located several people who have told us they believe that Judith Smith actually stayed at a hotel here locally and that they had conversations with her. We have confidence in these sightings and we believe that it was indeed her.
A dona desta loja lembrou ter falado com Judith.
I'm just positive it was her. She walked in the front room and we got into a conversation about where she was from. And she told me that her husband was an attorney and they had went to Pennsylvania for a convention that he was attending and that she had come down here by herself.
Segundo Jeffrey, Judith não mostrou nenhuma evidência que iria sair da Filadélfia. E as empresas aéreas não registraram seu voo à Carolina do Norte. Como o marido foi a última pessoa a vê-la, Jeff foi investigado pelo crime. Mas a polícia da Carolina do Norte não o considera mais suspeito.
My mom really loved Jeff and wanted to be married to him, and his drive and his motivation and his resources are the only reason why we were able to find my mom.
Os detetives acreditam que um morador de Asheville é o autor do crime.
The national forest in which Judith's remains were found at is not a tourist attraction. We have a lot of tourist attraction, we're a tourist town. But this particular location was not one of them. Someone that she was traveling with, or that she knew or she met up with, knew the area, and they brought her there.
We really believe that she was there of her own accord, that whether she had arrived there by herself was unlikely. It was remote. Somebody might have had to have taken her there. But it didn't appear as though she was taken there for this purpose of homicide.
Há uma outra pista intrigante. Judith tinha uma mochila vermelha que era sua marca registrada.
We used to call it the Red Wonder. She would carry things that you would carry in a pocketbook in there.
Judith devia estar com a mochila quando sumiu, mas ela não foi achada.
At the crime scene, we did find a backpack. It was of a different color, but it was odd that it would be the same backpack that she would have had, but it was not the backpack that we were looking for. That's a mystery to us.
It's outrageous that there is somebody walking around out there, free, who did this to us. I'm at a loss. I'm lonely every moment of the day.
I think the worst part is just that, she wasn't there for my wedding, and she won't be there when I hopefully have children someday, and that part is I guess it's just the everyday part.
Há uma recompensa por informações que levem a uma prisão. Quem souber detalhes sobre a morte de Judith Smith, contate o gabinete do xerife da comarca de Buncombe, Carolina do Norte. Nova Orleans, orgulho de Louisiana, situada no poderoso rio Mississippi, é famosa pela herança e arquitetura francesas. Devido à diversidade dos moradores, Nova Orleans é uma meca para observadores. O bairro francês é a parte mais antiga da cidade. É famoso por ser agitado tanto pelos vivos quanto pelos mortos. O prédio do salão de chá Bottom of the Cup existe há um século. Dizem que eventos misteriosos compõem sua história assombrada. Tam Mullen é o dono da Consultas Mediúnicas e vende artigos para cartomantes. Diz ele que o prédio tem muita atividade metafísica.
We have come to accept all the little idiosyncrasies about the building. Some people, if they're not used to it, I'm sure they would be surprised.
Segundo Tom, ele presencia eventos estranhos há anos.
And we have this swing in the patio hanging from the balcony. And it's a child's swing. And it's been here as long as I can remember. Well, one day I walked back into the courtyard, and it was a very still day. And all of a sudden, this swing starts going back and forth as if somebody is pushing it, somebody's in it swinging. And without any explanation, it just stops dead. There's nothing that could be pushing it. No wind, nothing. It was a very still day. So that was a shock.
A entidade mais ativa surgiu pela primeira vez quando Tom fazia alguns reparos.
One day we were working on some shutters, and we had the shutters on, the sawhorses blocking the stairway. And it felt like somebody was next to me. And it startled me. I looked up the stairway, and a woman turned the stairs. I saw the gown flowing. It was absolutely a period piece, something that somebody would wear during the day to stay cool in. It was a very light, linen-y type of gown.
Para identificar o espírito misterioso, Tom consultou a caça-fantasmas Kalila Smith.
The bottom of the cup is actually considered to be one of the most haunted places, and it's actually the home of the most active haunting in the French Quarter, Julie. She's a disembodied spirit that has chosen, for whatever reason, to remain earthbound. People have described Julie as being a very attractive, dark-haired woman with olive complexion, usually wearing a white or light-colored, ruffled gown.
Diz a lenda que Julie vive no bairro desde a Guerra da Secessão.
Julie lived here with her lover in the 1860s, thereabout. And Julie was an octoroon. She was 1/8 African blood and 7/8 European.
Being kept as a mistress, she enjoyed all the freedoms of a free woman as long as she was in the French Quarter. She even had servants of her own, house servants, cooks, things like laundress, people to take care of her. Being a woman of color, this is the only way she could experience that or to have these things. The only thing she could not have is she could not marry a lover.
Because of the social stigma with her being a woman of color, this was forbidden at that time. Juliet badgered him day and night for months on end to defy the law so that they could show the city of New Orleans just how strong their love was. He knew this was impossible.
There is one thing.
Finalmente, ele fez um desafio a Julie e ela parece ter tomado ao pé da letra.
He asked her to spend the entire night on the roof on one of the coldest nights in December. It was sleeting outside, the wind was blowing, and he told her that if she spent the entire night, the next morning she would be a bride. Never believing that she would take the dare, he, of course, forgot about the ultimatum as he entertained friends later that evening.
And that's where the tragedy came in. He didn't think she was going to do it. As he went to bed, he discovered she wasn't there.
He found Julie on the roof, and she had literally died of exposure. Now, the legend of Julie says that every year on the coldest night of December, she will appear on the roof, which she does, but the rest of the year, she's very active here inside the bottom of the cup.
Kalila registrou imagens misteriosas que ela diz serem a prova da presença de Julie no salão de chá.
When I had photographed Julie, I didn't see anything until the actual photograph came out. It appeared as white mist that was hovering over one of the reading rooms. And then when I scanned the photograph and it went into the negative art form, you could see the form of a woman inside the mist. I think the most unique thing I was able to get was some actual night shot video with orbs moving in the back of the building that we believe to be the spirit of Julie.
So let's see the palms again here.
Otis Biggs é o decano dos leitores de sorte porque lê o tarô aqui há 30 anos. Ele disse que o fantasma de Julie o visitou um dia enquanto se preparava para uma consulta.
And I was sitting in the booth and a lot of cold energy came up and down my back. And she has very long fingernails and she began to click on the table. Click, click, click. And I felt her cat go upside my leg, and you look down and there was no cat. So I felt a lot of energies and vibration from her. She has a smell of gardenia, and sometimes you can hear her giggle, sometimes you can hear her cry, so she makes her appearance very well known.
Segundo Otis, Julie aparece em outros lugares também.
I have seen Julie on the balcony. Sometimes she's up and down the stairs. You can hear the footsteps.
Otis diz que a aparição mais incrível foi uma noite no pátio.
I go and look at the fish in the fish pond, and I was there feeding the fish, and I looked down, and there was this face looking at me, staring at me, smiling at me. And I went, well, then she was gone.
I think Julie wants the attention. I think Julie enjoys getting the attention in the afterlife that she didn't get during her life.
This was her house. She enjoyed all the freedoms of a free person. She had everything, all the luxuries that anybody could imagine. And then she gave it up by trying to achieve the one thing she could, is marrying her lover. So this is why I think she's still here. It's too much to give up.
People shouldn't really be frightened to see her at all. She's a very playful spirit. She's a very kind spirit. Generally, as the rule goes, if one was a kind person, they're a kind spirit in the afterlife.
There's never anything negative. She's just there. Thank God we don't have a bad ghost, because I've heard about bad ghosts, and I wouldn't like it at all. I probably wouldn't even be here. She's here, we're here, we get along, that's fine.
Essa história é um conto de amor que deu errado. Para quem não acredita nesse espírito, uma visita ao bairro francês de Nova Orleans pode mudar isso.
What I would say to the non-believer is to open their minds, open their eyes, listen, and just be open to it, because they are there and the spirit world is not as far away as one might think.
Estamos em Wiltshire, área rural da Inglaterra, antes chamada de Reino de Wessex. A região guarda vestígios de épocas passadas, inclusive as formações de pedras de Stonehenge, as pirâmides de Silbury Hill e a vila de pedra de Avebury. Fenômenos mais recentes engrossam o misticismo. Desenhos intrigantes que se estendem por quilômetros foram impressos nos campos. São os famosos círculos nas plantações e ninguém consegue explicar como são feitos.
We who live here in this area know that there is something strange going on. We don't know what it is, we haven't got the answers, but we know it's happening.
I'm not a woo-woo kind of guy, you know, but this is one of the strangest things.
Os primeiros círculos foram descobertos há 15 anos. Desde então, centenas de desenhos complexos têm aparecido durante as noites de verão. David Guest tem um canil em Wiltshire. Sua história começa numa noite de verão de 1993.
We'd left the dogs out on the compound runs till about 10 o'clock. We'd watched news at 10. Gone down when that had started. Locked the dogs up, which takes about 45 minutes when we're running full like that. So we would probably have gone to bed about 11:30. Windows open because it was a warm night.
O canil tem um complexo sistema de alarme que detecta movimentação. E tem o reforço do melhor alarme contra ladrão. O melhor amigo do homem.
We have 3 large dogs in the house itself. And we normally have 50 to 60 dogs in the kennels. So if you walk around, we're going to get woken up very quickly.
Como sempre, David e sua mulher dormiam nos fundos da casa de onde vêm os campos. Durante a noite, os cães ficaram em silêncio. Mas tudo seria diferente com o raiar do dia.
We woke next morning, basically to find that our clocks had stopped. Everything in the house. Our wristwatches, electrical clocks, our wind-up clocks and our battery-operated clocks had all lost 2 hours.
Quando David saiu, descobriu algo ainda mais estranho.
All I'd done is walk out to the water trough to check for water, and there it was just there.
Ele ficou perplexo ao ver seu campo todo marcado.
It was a series of 3 circles with a series of smaller circles around it. This was probably no more than 25 meters, 30 meters across.
O fenômeno ocorreu sem despertar os cães e sem disparar os alarmes da fazenda.
If we have dogs bark, we automatically get up because we want to know why. The power hadn't actually gone down, because if the power goes down, it sets the trips off. So it would have shown in the trip boxes that we'd lost power during the course of the night. It wouldn't explain the wind-up clocks. It wouldn't explain the battery clocks. Because I think the clocks were definitely related to the crop circle. I don't know how, and I don't know why, but I think they were. So if anyone walked up there, they'd have left a track, and you would have been able to see the track. There was no track.
Outros habitantes destas lindas colinas também relatam eventos incomuns. Para Andrew Blackwell, passeio com seu cão resultou em surpresa.
I noticed an overwhelming sense of blackness in the sky. And the heckles went up on the back of the neck, and also the dog sort of like stopped and she wouldn't go any further. Come on. We've all seen storm clouds, but this was no storm cloud. This was a genuine blackness beyond blackness. The dog picked up on this. She became very protective. She wanted to look after me, and she wanted to get us both home as quickly as possible. On that basis, we ran. We left. We went then. We didn't want to be there anymore.
No dia seguinte, Andrew notou desenho com vários círculos e tamanhos diferentes que havia surgido no milharal perto de onde ele estivera. Ao ver, notou a semelhança com uma cadeia de DNA.
I'm not generally taken in by hoaxes, and I'm very skeptical of many aspects of the paranormal. I now have to say I do not understand what occurred, but I do not believe it was a hoax. I have to reinforce the fact that I feel it was a very genuine crop glyph. The ability of humankind to create something so quickly within a field and not to actually leave traces of footprints just isn't there. We can't do it, not unless we came down with a giant foot like Monty Python, stamped it into the corn.
Peter Sorensen passou 10 anos em terra e no ar, atrás da origem dos desenhos estranhos. Para ele, trata-se de obra humana. Na verdade, obra de artistas.
I think that they're like graffiti artists who make beautiful things, and they like the fact that people think they're beautiful things, and they have to do it anonymously. Like a graffiti artist, you can't go and say, hey, I did that on the side of the Empire State Building. That's it's going to land you in jail real fast. So for that reason, they're secretive, and some people say, well, then it's a hoax. No, it's not a hoax. It's an unusual art form.
A fazendeira Polly Carson discorda e está no meio da polêmica dos círculos, literalmente. Sua fazenda fica no epicentro dos círculos no milharal.
70% of all crop circles in the world occur in England. 70% of all English crop circles occur in our area.
O primeiro surgiu na fazenda de Polly em 1990. Desde então, ela descobriu dúzias deles na propriedade.
Having lived here amongst it for so many years, at the end of the day, I, and I have to say a lot of other farmers in this area, have to say, hoaxing doesn't explain it. There's something more going on.
Polly ficou particularmente perplexa com um círculo que descobriu numa manhã de 1992.
It poured down that night. It rained very heavily. I had Wellingtons on, and after a long walk, I came upon this enormous circle. It's actually the largest ever recorded circle. We have clay land. By the time I got there, my Wellingtons weighed pounds because I was loaded down with clay. The formation was clean as a whistle. There was no mud on the formation at all. And how could that happen?
Quem atribui os círculos a artistas noturnos não convencem Polly que viu vários em seu quintal.
When you see the detail, when you see the way the crop is laid, twisted, you just think, oh, come on, don't tell me that somebody sat here all night. You know, doing this. It looks like water has flown through. It looks like a river has gone through. Because it's just so flowing and so fluid. I mean, who's done that with a board and a plank?
Seja qual for a causa, cada morador tem sua explicação de como e por que os círculos aparecem.
I really feel that the pattern was created supernaturally. I feel that that's something perhaps one day we'll be able to explain, but currently I don't believe we can.
No one seems to have an answer to what they are, or who caused them.
What they do is bring people together. We've had fantastic experiences of people, total strangers, getting together, coming to visit these things, standing in them and talking about subjects that they would never dream of talking about. To me, that's a purpose.
Hollywood, Califórnia, é o lar do famoso Comedy Store, na Sunset Boulevard. Para os mestres da piada, o clube é a Universidade da Comédia. Na verdade, muitos comediantes famosos começaram ali. Inclusive Jim Carrey e David Letterman. Quando futuros comediantes vêm a Los Angeles, a primeira parada é o Comedy Store.
People would get off the bus from Iowa, come right to the Comedy Store with their baggage. They haven't even checked into a hotel, they have no place to live, but they're going to go on at the Comedy Store and show everybody how funny they are.
O que os novatos não sabem é que, segundo alguns, nem só os comediantes fazem shows aqui.
The Comedy Store is so haunted from the attic to the basement. That place is filled with spirits.
Em 1980, Laurie Jacobson trabalhou lá de garçonete.
We used the belly room as a small, intimate club room. We had to put tablecloths on each table and a candle and an ashtray. And once you did that, the room was set up.
Pelo menos devia.
The waitress would go back and everything would be put away. The tablecloths would be off, folded back on the shelf, candles blown out, put away, ashtrays stacked on the bar.
Como Laurie, Joey Gaynor diz ter visto coisas ali que desafiam a explicação.
I think of all the places I've ever heard of, for my money, this is probably one of the most haunted I've ever heard of, because it's so concentrated. You know, it's like all these different things in one particular building. When I was first working here in this room, came in to shut the lights off behind the stage. I walked up on stage and I hit all the light switches, which took all of about 8-9 seconds, and I walked back and like all of the chairs were piled up like a pyramid. You can't pile all the chairs in 10 seconds. You can't move all the chairs into the aisle in 10 seconds. And you would have heard somebody if they were doing it. That was pretty scary.
Seu colega Blake Clark concorda plenamente.
Oh, I have never had any sort of paranormal manifestation outside of the Comedy Store. I've never encountered ghosts, Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch, or any lizard man or anything like that. Just here. One night I came in and I heard noise in the women's room, like talking, like whispering and giggling. You know, psip, psip, psip. So I went in there and said, all right, I'm locking up the room, you gotta get out. So I walked in and of course there was no one in there.
Para alguns, a energia dos comediantes cria o clima ideal para as manifestações.
You could feel all this nervous tension. My own personal beliefs is some sort of like a demon that thrives on insecurity. I really think it fed off of that. It was a great place to feed off of that.
Blake Clark diz ter visto algo estranho quando andava perto do palco.
The stool was like going, just kind of dancing, vibrating, you know, and then it slid all the way across the stage. I thought, well, somebody's over there pulling it with a fishing wire or something I can't see, and I walked over there and there's no one in the room.
Dizem que os eventos estranhos têm a ver com fantasmas do passado do clube.
The Comedy Store used to be Ciro's nightclub, which was the most famous, most glamorous nightclub in Hollywood's golden age. In the 40s and 50s, there was one club to be seen at, and that was Ciro's. You could go there on any given night and see Lucille Ball, Tyrone Power, Betty Davis, Barbara Stanwyck. You name it, they were at Ciro's.
See, I think a lot of the people who had been here, whether they had come here as a nightclub patron or a performer and they passed away, the ghosts, I think, are people that don't know they're dead or don't want to be dead, and they go back to places where they're comfortable.
Joey e Blake dizem que depois de show, houve uma manifestação poltergeist violenta.
Blake is stacking chairs over there, and I'm putting some chairs up, and finally I look at Blake and I go, you know, whatever's in here, man, I'm sick of this. So I said, hey, you know what? Whatever's in here, come on, bring it on. I'm ready.
And all of a sudden, the ashtray just went flying by I mean, it didn't miss me by more than 6 inches.
There was no one else in here. The ashtray sailed right over my head, smash, right over the door. I looked at Blake, he looked at me, we put the chairs down, and we left. That's poltergeist. And that's when I stopped invoking him and getting him angry. Because that was the only time I think that anything physical happened like that.
I don't want to sound too mysterious or spiritual or whatever, but whenever it was a ghost, you had the feeling that this ain't normal.
Anormal, e talvez até sinistro, ecoando o lado mais sombrio do passado do clube.
I think a lot of gangster stuff went on in this joint, you know, during the Ciro days. This was a big nightclub. The gangsters would come in, the movie stars would come in, they all rubbed elbows. The belly room was like soundproofed and lead-lined, because you really don't want anybody hearing someone scream, stop, enough. You know, please, please, oh, please, oh, please. You know, you really don't want anybody to hear it.
Com os comediantes ocorreu algo assustador na escada que leva ao porão.
This thump, 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 like something coming up those wooden steps, something big and heavy. And and all of a sudden we heard this, and the grate was stretching out, pushing out into the hallway, just like that. And I was just standing there looking at it thinking, how far can this thing go? It's gonna break, it's gonna snap. It went boom, 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 like that. I guess that's closest I came to being afraid of anything in here, was that.
Segundo os comediantes, o contato mais misterioso ocorreu no porão.
We go down there, and all of a sudden Joey's going, stop, like that. And I looked at him, and he was standing there with his hands out like this. It was like this thing was forming that was darker than the darkness that was in the room.
It didn't have a physical body. It was more like just it rose, and as it rose, it just got a little wider at the top, and then it was just this huge black fog. I actually got scared because I'd never seen anything like that before.
And then something hits me on my hand that's inside the shelf, like it just dropped. And it had my name written on it, Blake Clark, from when I was up in the belly room. That was pretty freaky.
Para os comediantes, essas experiências vão existir sempre no Clube da Comédia.
The Comedy Store is filled with spirits. There is only one in the basement that is very, very unhappy. The rest of the spirits in the Comedy Store, I believe, come back to a place where they had a marvelous time, and they choose to relive that marvelous time over and over again.
I don't know why they do what they do. They got their own agenda, so to speak.
I think as long as this place is open, whether it's the Comedy Store, a pet shop, a hot dog stand, a car wash, there will be ghosts here because they're here and they're not leaving. They have nowhere to go. This is where they go.
A 48 quilômetros ao norte de Baton Rouge, Louisiana, pertinho do rio Mississippi, fica uma rota de balsa em St. Francisville. Os ingleses estiveram aqui na Guerra Revolucionária. Foi aqui que a plantação Myrtles foi criada em 1796. Hoje é uma pousada famosa por sua trágica história e constantes relatos de que é assombrada.
I definitely believe that it is haunted. I have no doubts.
When I first got the Myrtles and we moved here, we were not at all believers. We thought there's just no way. It's an advertising ploy. It's a hook. But we were here about 3 weeks when the spirits made it known that they were here.
Desde sua inauguração na década de 60, centenas de pessoas falam de aparições estranhas.
I woke at about 3 in the morning to bouncing on the end of my bed. I saw a little girl in a long white dress, long blonde hair, jumping and giggling on my bed. I could not see through her. That's what I would have expected a ghost to look like, that, with big light behind her or see-through transparent, something like that. She looked solid. She looked like somebody's child had gotten loose in the house and found my room and was playing. And I immediately threw my head back in the pillows and tried to convince myself that I was dreaming. Finally, it stopped, and it felt like it had been forever, but when I looked up, the clock said 3:07. The little girl was gone, and it had only been 5 minutes. I saw her plain as day. I know it's a strange story, and I'm not out to convince anyone of the story, and I'm sure that some question it, but it's what happened to me, and I'm just here to tell you what happened.
A guia Hester Abby diz ter tido vários contatos estranhos na casa.
I did not believe in ghosts, but after working here for about 2 weeks, I began to change my mind.
Hester relata a movimentação incomum de objetos.
We put candles in holders, we come back, they're lying on the floor. They're not broken, it's not that they fell. It's as if someone says, well, I don't want them here, and they place them down.
Dia, durante tour, Esther diz ter sentido algo estranho.
I made a point to stand behind the couch in the ladies' parlor when giving tours because I'm out of the way and our guests can easily see the room. I could feel a child pulling on the side of my clothing. Kind of way a child does when they need to tell you something and you're talking to someone else. Of course, no one was there.
Para muitos, tudo pode ser explicado pelo passado sombrio da casa. A plantação Myrtles era o lar do general David Bradford, o líder da rebelião do uísque de 1796.
General David Bradford fled George Washington's army during the Whiskey Rebellion, came down the Mississippi, and he, on a 640-acre Spanish land grant, built the Myrtles Plantation.
Juiz da Louisiana, Clark Woodruff, se casou com a filha de Bradford e o casal viveu em Myrtles com os 3 filhos.
Judge Clark Woodruff had a black concubine, a beautiful mulatto girl named Chloe, which was very common. That was just the way things were. There was a great dichotomy between a house servant and a field slave. The house servants, of course, feeling very privileged because they were.
Mas quando Chloe foi pega ouvindo o juiz e a esposa, foi brutalmente castigada.
Her left earlobe was severed. This was the normal punishment for that type of misdemeanor because it would tell other plantation owners that this girl was not to be trusted, that she was caught eavesdropping.
Para evitar a humilhação de ser expulsa da casa e ser escrava no campo, Chloe armou plano peculiar.
She decided that what she would do to gain favor of the family was that she would take oleander leaves and pour it into a cake batter and make the family sick. She would then know what to give them to make them well. Only her misguided intentions were that she put too much of the poison in the cake and the mother and 2 of the children died. And Chloe told the other servants what she had done because she feared for her life and she thought that the servants would have helped her escape.
Em vez de ajudá-la, os servos a enforcaram numa árvore do quintal.
So that night, Sarah Matilda, the 2 children, and Chloe all lost their lives.
Desde então, hóspedes e funcionários do local alegam ter contato com espíritos desencarnados naquela noite fatídica.
I think the tragedy that surrounds this house has left their spirits somehow unsettled, and so they're in their home. And they're comfortable here, and they're seen looking in the windows and playing. I think they just are here.
I believe the children that guests have said that they still see is Judge Clark Woodruff's daughters that were poisoned by Chloe.
Outra hóspede conta uma experiência surpreendente perto da árvore onde Chloe teria sido enforcada.
All of a sudden, something hit the back of our swing that was a metallic sound. We were the only people sitting in the swing. And it was almost like a golf club. And we came out of the swing, and there was nothing behind us. We couldn't see anything. We could not imagine what that could be.
Rebecca diz ter tido outro contato inexplicável numa outra visita.
I was sitting on the floor, going through some of my belongings, and I felt a presence come in. Actually, I could see it from my peripheral vision. It did not have a distinct form. I could discern that it was a male presence, and it brushed against me. I could feel it go past me from behind me, and it went into the next room. I mean, I could detect that. And it just gave me the chills. The hair of my neck raised, and I thought, I'm just not going to make a big deal out of this. I'm not going to be fearful.
Mas 2 horas depois, o cheiro de tabaco encheu a sala.
It was like someone had put an ashtray under my nose. And there's no smoking in any of these rooms. And I don't smoke, so I believe that there's a supernatural being or beings here that are very active.
Tita Moss tirou uma foto que não consegue explicar. Após o ceticismo inicial, ela agora cogita que seja algo sobrenatural.
There was this shadowy figure that looked an awful lot like a lady in one of the pictures. And I said, oh, I'm sure it's just a shadow.
As proporções batem com as de uma figura humana, mas o torso parece transparente. A madeira da casa pode ser vista atrás.
When they did a shadow density on the photograph, the two children showed up on the roof. So we now have this photograph that has a slave in slave costume and two children that came up on the roof. So I would say that that's a pretty suspicious picture.
Tita não foi a única em Myrtles que tirou uma foto misteriosa.
We have drawers filled with pictures from people who come through on tour and people who spend the night and the stuff that they send us after they get home.
Tita Moss acha que os espíritos de Myrtles são bons e estão olhando por sua família.
My son said, Mommy, come get the little girl off the chandelier. So trying not to alarm him, but yet at the same time trying to placate him, I said, Sweetie, tell Mommy, what does she look like? He said, she has on a white dress. And I said, well, what color's her hair? And he said, well, oh, Mommy, can't you see? And at that very moment, I wasn't afraid, but I knew there are spirits here, and they are protecting my children in this home.
There's nothing to fear. They aren't out to harm anyone. They're just here protecting their home and watching the people that come and go and interacting with the ones that they feel some sort of connection to, I think.
I do believe they're real. I do. I felt it and I believe it with my whole heart.
O belo lago Okanagan, na província canadense Colômbia Britânica, a 4 horas de Vancouver, se estende por 128 quilômetros e chega a ter mais de 240 metros de profundidade. Em tal recipiente cavado pela Mãe Natureza, a água jamais congela, nem no inverno mais gelado. Esse cenário pitoresco abriga um dos maiores mistérios do Canadá. Nos últimos 300 anos, há relatos de uma criatura marinha gigante no lago. Seu apelido é Ogopogo, paródia de uma antiga canção folclórica britânica. A criatura é um fenômeno bem documentado, mas nunca desvendado. A escritora Arlene Gaal recebe relatos, no mínimo, de uns 12 avistamentos por ano.
We're looking at literally hundreds of people. If we were to gather them all together, we would fill an auditorium and more. There would be people standing outside that have had the experience.
Em agosto do ano 2000, o engenheiro Luknovsky saiu nesta sacada da Summerhill Winery, que dá para o lago, quando teve uma experiência estranha.
It was a little bit cloudy, it was still nice and warm. The lake was kind of gray as opposed to blue because of the cloud. It was fairly calm, a little bit of a ripple here and there, but the reason I took the shot was really because I did see something. In the water, it looks like a long, dark, slender, slightly coiled object, probably 40, 45 feet long, and I'm guessing 4 or 5 feet in diameter. I think we got an interesting shot that I can't explain.
A moradora Twyla Murdoch acha que viu o Ogopogo quando seu cunhado visitou o lago Okanagan.
He said, how big are the fish in this lake? And I said, 25, 30 pounds, tops. And he said, well, what's that? And I turned around, and I was just speechless to what I saw. It was huge, like a serpent-like creature in the lake. Probably about 40 to 50 feet long. Instead of swimming like a fish, it was more like undulating. You could see the head go down and then kind of a bump come up every once in a while. It didn't look like anything I'd ever seen before. It wasn't a fish, it wasn't a snake, it wasn't a sturgeon, it was odd, big and odd.
O esquiador Dan Basaraba estava com sua câmera de vídeo quando avistou o Ogopogo numa manhã de verão em 2001.
A friend of mine said, look across the lake, there's something over there. Picked up the video camera, started shooting, and got a pretty good shot of it. We've seen something like a submarine or a snake surfacing, coming up on the water. It was about 30, 40 feet long. There's no way that this could have been a fish because fish just don't get that big in this lake. It couldn't have been a log or anything like that because it was definitely moving. There's motion to it, and there's not many currents, and there was no other waves. It was a calm day out. It's just phenomenal to me.
Everyone does not see exactly the same thing, mainly because we're looking at portions of the animal's body breaking water. At times they will see 3 protrusions out of the water, 20 to 40 feet in length, brownish or darkish green in color.
Explicações naturais para os avistamentos são os efeitos da luz e as ondas na água ou um peixe enorme ainda não documentado. Pelas teorias especulativas, é descendente de dinossauro.
They resemble plesiosaur, but not plesiosaur as one would know it during the Jurassic period, but plesiosaur that has adapted itself to the environment of our day.
Arlene crê ter fotografado o Ogopogo em 1970. Nesse dia, ela estava na ponte de Kelowna.
As I turned my head towards the bridge, I saw this shadow moving in 2 parts, just away from the bridge. I followed it with my eyes, and suddenly my mouth dropped because I want you to imagine a 1940s submarine surfacing with the waves rolling off the top of it. I remember grabbing my camera, took 5 sequential shots, then I sat down and attempted to convince myself that what I had seen was not there. We're actually seeing a very large black something on the surface of the lake, and it was at least 40 to 50 feet long. I was shocked.
O engenheiro Mike Muirhead foi contratado para um experimento para localizar Ogopogo em setembro de 2000.
We had side-scan sonar, which basically gives you a sonar return from any kind of objects in the lake and on the bottom of the lake. We also had a remote control vehicle, which went down and was able to take actual video images.
A sonda captou imagens de algo incrivelmente grande se mexendo no fundo lamacento do lago.
When we first saw the video imagery of the large object moving out of the mud, it's exciting, so that immediately catches your attention. It's unusual. You're not used to seeing objects of that size moving on the bottom.
Depois, os cientistas usaram um sonar torpedo que mandou um sinal direto para o fundo. O aparelho proporcionou uma descoberta espantosa.
What we have here is a side-scan image of an object that is 45 feet long. And the length of the object, as you can see from the cursor, goes from the top end here all the way down to there. And that's a continuous object. We can actually measure the fact that the object is 5 feet wide.
A tela do sonar mostra um objeto se mexendo rápido. Porém, mesmo com essa descoberta, restaram mais perguntas do que respostas.
We had exactly 1 piece of data. And to try and, from a scientific standpoint, base some kind of conclusion, 1 piece of data just isn't on. It needs more information.
O vídeo mais intrigante da criatura de Okanagan foi obtida por Paul Demara em 1992. Curiosamente, ela sugere várias criaturas enormes no lago.
Grabbed my video camera and started to videotape what appeared to be something just below the surface of the water. It was something I had never seen before in my life. The amount of area that's covered and the number of waves that you can see suggests that there may in fact be a number of them. And I believe that's possible because if there is a creature that in fact lives deep in the lake, and it is a very deep lake, then they probably have to reproduce.
Enquanto Paul Demara estava filmando, uma lancha apareceu puxando um esquiador.
This water skier appeared to ski right over what was going on there. I'm not sure if they saw something and the water skier fell, and I was actually quite surprised and in fact suggested that this person was going to get eaten alive. I was so shocked. I've never been able to find out who was in that boat that day. The creature seemed to submerge at that point and move away from there.
In some of the latest videotape, we see 3 or more creatures swimming side by side. So they are not only sustaining themselves, but they are also reproducing.
O morador Michael Bett estava sem câmera quando ficou a 18 metros da misteriosa criatura.
For me, I had a feeling in my stomach and it brought tears to my eyes. It was a very moving experience. What I saw was a huge, enormous, snake-like creature rise to the surface and come very close to my boat, but then withdraw. And it was very scary at the time. It was like a supernatural experience.
Alguns pensam, se é mesmo uma criatura marinha, para onde ela vai entre os avistamentos?
I'm feeling that it probably has a cave of sorts beneath the surface of the lake, or maybe it moves up one of the tributaries and goes off somewhere to hibernate for the winter.
Muitos daqueles que eram céticos passaram a acreditar.
Ogopogo does exist. As far as I'm concerned, I've seen him.
I wasn't a believer of Ogopogo before, but I definitely am now. There's something out there, and it will be explained someday.
There must be something, whether it's a giant sturgeon or whether it's a forgotten creature from days gone by, but the lake is very big and there's a lot of sightings, so there must be something to it.
I'm convinced something's going on in Okanagan Lake. I just don't know what it is. Maybe one day there'll be some evidence that everybody will agree is scientifically valid evidence to support all the stories that have been told over the years.
Por enquanto, Ogopogo permanece um mistério que precisa ser explicado. Ventura, Califórnia, uma cidadezinha charmosa que fica a 96 quilômetros ao norte de Los Angeles. Em 1910, a Pierpont Inn foi construída de frente para o mar. Desde então, é um dos hotéis mais famosos de Ventura. Mas, nos últimos 30 anos, os funcionários e os visitantes de Pierpont dizem ter visto fantasmas.
There has been a couple mysterious things happen to me over the past 10 years. Actually, I never really told anybody about it for a long time until these incidents started happening more and more.
I've talked to a lot of people who have had experiences here, myself included, and everybody says these spirits are very benign, they're very friendly.
I think that there's maybe an energy here that people have had such a good time they don't want to leave. There just seems to be a presence of life here.
Kirk Benitez trabalha em Pierpont desde 1994. Ele é uma pessoa séria. No entanto, diz ter visto uma aparição misteriosa numa noite de trabalho no hotel.
At the end of the hallway, there's this glass door, and I kind of stopped and looked, and in the reflection, there was not my reflection there. There was a reflection of some man in a derby hat.
I just kind of looked and stared, and I got goosebumps like I'm getting right now. I thought it was me at first, and I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't me with a derby hat. This definitely had to be a ghost or some kind of apparition or something. This wasn't human, definitely.
E ele não está sozinho ao acreditar nisso. Cat Farrell cuida do abastecimento de Pierpont desde 1999. Como Benítez, ela é uma funcionária responsável. Mas em novembro de 2000, ela se assustou com algo que acredita ser do mundo espiritual.
I was making copies, and Joey started walking down the hallway holding the hand of this adorable little girl.
Hey, Joey, how you doing today?
Just as I said that, I turned to pick up the papers from the copy machine. I said, "Who's that? Who's the little girl?" And as quickly as I did that, she was gone.
Where did she go? The little girl, you were just holding her hand.
I definitely did see her. I wasn't imagining anything, and it wasn't 4 o'clock in the afternoon burnout time. It was first thing in the morning. So I was very fresh and very aware of my surroundings.
Alguns dizem que os fantasmas do hotel movimentam objetos. Rafael Hernandes diz que presenciou tal fato numa noite de trabalho na cozinha.
So I'm putting water glasses on the rack, and 5 feet away from my right, we have a rack of wine glasses. Suddenly, I just see the rack just falling forward. And all the glasses shattered except for 5 of them that landed on the rail. 5 just right next to each other. After that happened, I pretty thought that someone's here, someone's looking at us, someone's watching what we're doing, and I stood there for a minute thinking, what just happened?
Nos últimos 90 anos, o Pierpont pertenceu apenas a 3 famílias. Em 1908, Josephine Pierpont construiu o elegante hotel para seu filho Austin gerenciar. Em 1938, o já idoso Austin vendeu a Gus e Matt Gleichman.
Gus Gleichman was tragically killed in a car accident, and Maddie decided to carry on. And when her son Ted became of age, he too then became the owner and manager of the inn.
Mas Ted morreu jovem de uma doença incurável.
The ghosts appear to be former guests and former owners. From the activities that have been related in the stories, these guests of another time period, shall we say, just want to still be here. The past owners are coming to check to see how the inn is continuing to function.
Segundo o pessoal da administração, Ted talvez ainda esteja de olho nas finanças do hotel.
The bookkeeper and the night auditor were going over the nightly receipts, which is a common practice. Suddenly, a gentleman walked into the room, and he sat down. The 2 of them turned around to look at him, and he vanished.
Oh my God, that was Ted.
Even though it was unsettling to her, it made sense that Ted would return to be overseeing the financial operation of the inn, because it was his entire life.
Não foram só os funcionários que tiveram experiências peculiares. O hóspede Rob Vlodarski diz ter tido vários contatos extraordinários.
I was about ready to close the door for the evening to the bedroom, and I saw the shadow on the wall. You know, I'm thinking somebody came in, got into the room, but then it's like, no, that's not it. I saw a man wearing a hat, sort of a profile, and as I got up and went after this, the shadow darted down the hallway. So I go to reach for the door, and I give it a yank because I think it's open, and it's locked. Then I'm going, what in God's name did I see?
When he told me that story, I immediately thought it would be Austin Pierpont, because Mr. Pierpont did wear a hat, and it seems appropriate. I mean, he built the cottage. So I would think it's Austin just making sure everybody's having a good time.
Rob diz ter visto uma aparição estranha no restaurante de Pierpont.
I saw a gentleman, looked 50s, something like that. Looked like he'd been working late at night, like an accountant or bookkeeper. Walks in, and then he just sort of walks away from the bar and just vanishes. It's just so strange, so unexplainable. And when you go through all the logical explanations and you can't explain it, all that's left is some weird phenomena that you have no explanation for. Call it paranormal, call it ghosts. That's what happened.
Cynthia Thompson sugere que o homem era gás.
Whenever former owners seem to have appeared, it's as if it's a protective kind of situation where they're simply coming back to make sure everything is continuing to be okay, because they devoted their lives to the ongoing operation of the inn.
Outro evento estranho foi relatado pelo hóspede Rob.
I hear a couple of children laughing or giggling. And it seemed like minutes went by, but I know it was only seconds. I saw the pool area gone, just vanished. It was like a scene from another time period. Instead of the pool being there, I saw children playing. I saw a pond. I saw a woman sitting in a chair watching them. Within seconds, it's gone.
Com tantos relatos de fantasmas em Pierpont, os hóspedes ainda se sentem seguros lá? Parece que sim.
They're friendly and I'm not scared of them. If they were to come up to me right now, there wouldn't be a problem.
People from the past who are no longer physically with us like to come back and visit. And it makes sense that the energy of these people wants to return to a place that was enjoyable to them.
I don't feel that it was anyone unfriendly, and certainly I think they're welcoming us. I think it'd be wonderful for people to come here and experience this.